Hello everyone. If you love heartwarming animal stories and want to follow the inspiring journey of these adorable friends, don't forget to hit the subscribe button now so you won't miss any of our videos. Now, let's dive into today's emotional story. Tom's life had always been simple and filled with the joys of being a carefree boy. At the age of 10, he had big dreams of running faster than anyone at school, of playing soccer with his friends, and of one day becoming a professional athlete. But that all changed in the blink of an eye. It was a rainy Saturday afternoon when the accident happened. Tom had been walking home from a friend's house, eager to finish his homework and join his family for a quiet evening. As he crossed the street, a car came speeding around the corner, unable to stop in time on the wet roads. The impact sent Tom flying, his body crashing hard onto the pavement. Everything went black. When Tom woke up, everything felt different. His head was heavy, and his body ached in ways he had never felt before. He slowly opened his eyes and found himself lying in a hospital bed, surrounded by white walls and the beeping of machines. His mother, Grace, was sitting beside him, her eyes red from crying. The doctors had explained that Tom had suffered a severe spinal injury, one that left him paralyzed from the waist down. The news was a blow that would alter his life forever. At first, Tom couldn't comprehend what the doctors were saying. He couldn't feel his legs, and it felt as though his body had betrayed him. Every attempt to move them only brought frustration and tears. For weeks, he lay in that hospital bed, fighting the sadness that threatened to consume him. He couldn't understand why something so unfair had happened to him. Why him? Why now? Grace and her husband, James, did everything they could to support their son, but they knew that no amount of words could truly ease his pain. Tom had always been an active boy, full of energy and ambition. Now, he was trapped in a world where everything he had once loved seemed out of reach. As the days dragged on, Tom's spirits sank. His friends came to visit, but it was hard for him to face them. He felt embarrassed, angry, and alone. Everyone told him that he would get better with time, that he just needed to keep trying, but Tom couldn't see a way out of the darkness. Every day felt the same, endless, numb, and filled with a sense of hopelessness. One morning, as Tom lay staring out the window at the world moving on without him, his parents entered the room with an unexpected surprise. They had been talking for days about how they could help Tom through this difficult time, and they had come to a decision. It wasn't an easy one, but they felt it was the right choice. "We've decided to bring someone into our lives, Tom," Grace said softly. "Someone who can help you through this." Tom looked at his mother, puzzled. "Who?" he asked. At that moment, the door opened, and in walked a small, energetic dog, wagging its tail. It was a golden retriever mix with big, expressive eyes and a playful stance. The dog trotted over to Tom's bed, its tail wagging so furiously that it looked like it might take off. "This is Sparky," James said with a smile. "We've decided to adopt him from the animal shelter. We thought he could be a good companion for you." Tom stared at the dog, unsure of how he felt. A part of him wanted to be excited. He had always liked animals, especially dogs. But another part of him felt reluctant. Could a dog really help him? Could he really find comfort in a pet when he couldn't even comfort himself? Sparky, as if sensing Tom's hesitation, walked closer and gently nuzzled his hand. There was something about the dog's eyes, something kind, patient, and full of understanding, that made Tom feel a little less alone. "Hey, buddy," Tom whispered, his voice shaky as he reached out and stroked Sparky's soft fur. The dog responded by leaning into his touch, a gesture of pure affection. In that moment, something in Tom's heart began to thaw, and he felt a small spark of hope. Maybe this dog could help him. Tom's world had become smaller and smaller since the accident. The hospital visits, the therapy sessions, and the constant feeling of frustration had drained him. Each day seemed like a reminder of what he had lost. His dreams of running, playing, and simply moving freely had been replaced by the harsh reality of paralysis. His body no longer worked as it once did, and Tom was unsure of how to move forward. When Sparky arrived, Tom wasn't sure what to expect. The little golden retriever mix had an energy about him that seemed almost too much for Tom to handle. Sparky bounced around the house with enthusiasm, his wagging tail knocking over vases and causing a general ruckus. At first, Tom stayed distant, not sure how a dog could make him feel any better. How could a playful puppy help him when he couldn't even walk? But Sparky, in his own gentle way, had a different idea. He seemed to understand the weight that Tom carried, and he never stopped trying to engage with him. Sparky would curl up beside Tom when he was too tired to move, his warm body providing comfort. If Tom were lying in bed staring at the ceiling, Sparky would nudge him with his nose or lay his head gently on Tom's lap. The dog's persistence was hard to ignore, and although Tom didn't fully admit it, there was something comforting about having Sparky around. One afternoon, Grace suggested something different. "Why don't you try taking Sparky outside for a bit?" she asked, hoping to encourage Tom to leave his room. "You can stay in your wheelchair, just get some fresh air." Tom wasn't sure. "What's the point?" he muttered, looking down at his immobile legs. "I can't walk, so what good will it do?" But Grace's voice was gentle, understanding. "It's not about walking. It's about feeling the world outside. You and Sparky can enjoy it together." Tom reluctantly agreed, and with a deep breath, he wheeled himself to the backyard with Sparky eagerly trotting beside him. At first, Tom barely noticed the breeze on his face, too caught up in his own self-doubt. But Sparky wasn't about to let him stay stuck in his head for long. The puppy ran circles around the wheelchair, barking excitedly, as though to say, "Come on, Tom, join me." There was something infectious about Sparky's joy. As the puppy's enthusiasm continued, Tom began to smile, feeling a slight lift in his chest. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Sparky would occasionally run off and then return, looking up at Tom as if waiting for him to join in the fun. Slowly, Tom allowed himself to become part of the moment. The sounds of Sparky's playful barks, the rustling of leaves in the wind, and the soft rays of sunshine made everything feel a little lighter. Tom realized that despite the weight of his situation, there was still a way to experience joy. The next day, Grace noticed that Tom seemed a little brighter, more willing to leave the house. She continued to encourage their small outings, pushing Tom to take Sparky for walks around the block, with Tom in his wheelchair and Sparky walking happily alongside. Each walk, no matter how small, seemed to strengthen Tom's resolve. He no longer felt as confined to his room or his thoughts. Sparky's presence allowed him to focus on the little things, the sound of the wind, the beauty of the neighborhood, and, most importantly, the bond he was building with the dog. One day, Tom even surprised Grace. After weeks of simply sitting outside and enjoying Sparky's company, he insisted on trying something new. "I want to try the stairs," he said quietly. Grace was stunned. "Tom, are you sure? It's not easy." "I know," he said, looking down at his legs, "but I've got Sparky. I think I can do it." With Grace's help and Sparky by his side, Tom tried to slowly move from one step to the next. It was an arduous process, and his legs shook with each attempt, but Sparky stayed close, nudging Tom's hand when he faltered. After what felt like hours, Tom managed to reach the top of the stairs, sweating and exhausted but smiling with pride. Sparky licked his face, as if saying, "You did it, Tom. You're stronger than you think." That small victory became a turning point for Tom. He realized that while the road to recovery would be long and challenging, he was not walking it alone. Sparky, the dog who had never judged him or asked for anything in return, had become a source of strength for him. Tom's journey toward healing was no longer a solitary one, and every day with Sparky by his side made him believe just a little more in the possibility of recovery. As the weeks passed, Tom's progress was slow but steady. Sparky continued to be his constant companion, offering encouragement, love, and the occasional playful distraction. In return, Tom worked hard, pushing himself, stretching his limits, and gaining a sense of hope he hadn't felt in a long time. As weeks turned into months, Tom's journey toward recovery became more than just about physical therapy. Every small step he took, whether it was in the therapy room or at home with Sparky, was a reminder of the power of persistence. But there were days when the weight of the struggle seemed too much. The frustrations mounted, and Tom often found himself staring at the floor, consumed by doubts. Would he ever fully regain control of his legs? Would he ever be able to walk without assistance again? On those particularly difficult days, Sparky was always there. The little dog never once questioned Tom's ability. Instead, Sparky offered his presence, steadfast, loyal, and endlessly encouraging. If Tom was feeling down, Sparky would nudge his hand gently, or roll over onto his back, his tail wagging wildly, as if to remind Tom that no matter how tough things seemed, he was not alone. One afternoon, after a grueling therapy session, Tom returned home exhausted, both physically and mentally. His therapist had been encouraging, but Tom couldn't shake the feeling that his progress was painfully slow. He had been pushing himself hard, but the road ahead still seemed long, and each day felt like a constant uphill battle. He wheeled himself into the living room and slumped back into his chair, letting out a long sigh. Sparky trotted over and jumped up onto his lap, his head resting gently against Tom's chest. "Why is it so hard, Sparky?" Tom whispered, his voice thick with frustration. "It feels like no matter how hard I try, I just can't move forward." Sparky responded by licking Tom's cheek, as if to say, "It's okay. I'm here. You're not alone." As Tom absently scratched Sparky's head, he realized just how much the dog had changed his life. It wasn't just about having a companion to keep him company. Sparky had become his motivator, his silent coach. The bond between them had grown stronger with each passing day, and it was clear that Sparky was more than just a dog. He was an integral part of Tom's healing process. But on this particular day, Tom felt defeated. He had been struggling with feelings of inadequacy, wondering if he would ever be able to lead a normal life again. What if the accident had taken away everything he loved? What if he could never play soccer again, or run through the park with his friends? What if he was destined to live the rest of his life in a wheelchair? Sparky seemed to sense the shift in Tom's mood. He jumped down from Tom's lap and trotted toward the door, looking back at Tom with a spark of determination in his eyes. The dog paused, almost as if waiting for Tom to follow. At first, Tom was reluctant to move, but something in Sparky's demeanor stirred him. Without a word, Tom wheeled himself towards the door, his heart pounding in his chest. He had no idea what Sparky was leading him to, but the dog's enthusiasm was contagious. Tom felt an unexpected surge of hope. As they went outside, Sparky raced ahead, darting back and forth, his energy uncontainable. Tom watched, a small smile forming on his lips. The sight of Sparky's playful antics lifted his spirits. As the dog returned to him and nuzzled his hand, Tom realized that Sparky's energy wasn't just physical, it was emotional. It was that same energy that had driven Tom to keep going, even on the toughest days. With Sparky still at his side, Tom felt more motivated than ever. "Okay, Sparky," he muttered to himself. "If you can keep going, I can too." Tom took a deep breath, and for the first time in days, he felt something shift inside of him. It was as if Sparky had shown him that there was more to life than just recovery. There was hope. And with hope, there was the possibility of a new beginning. Over the next few weeks, Tom focused on his exercises with renewed determination. He worked harder, stretching his limits, and began pushing himself to achieve more in his therapy sessions. At first, the progress was slow, but it was there, small victories that added up over time. Sparky was always with him, standing by his side as Tom fought through the pain, as if telling him, "I believe in you, and I'm not going anywhere." One day, after another difficult session, Tom wheeled himself into the living room and saw something that filled his heart with pride. Sparky was sitting patiently at the foot of the stairs, watching him with an expectant look in his eyes. It was the moment Tom had been waiting for. "I'm ready, Sparky," Tom whispered, a newfound resolve in his voice. It wasn't just about taking another step forward, it was about taking a leap. With Sparky by his side, Tom stood up from his wheelchair, shaky at first, and slowly took his first step toward the stairs. The physical effort was excruciating, but the emotional strength that Sparky had helped him build carried him forward. Sparky jumped up and bounded over, wagging his tail, as if cheering him on. With each step, Tom grew more confident. His legs still shook, but he felt a sense of pride that had eluded him for so long. He was moving forward, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally as well. Sparky, always by his side, had given him the courage to push past his limits. As the weeks turned into months, Tom continued to make progress, and the bond between him and Sparky only deepened. Sparky had become the foundation of Tom's strength, his constant source of encouragement. It was clear to everyone around them that the dog had helped Tom break through the barriers that once seemed insurmountable. The journey was far from over, but Tom had learned an important lesson. The road to recovery wasn't just about the body, it was about the heart. And with Sparky by his side, Tom knew that he could face whatever challenges lay ahead. Tom had made tremendous progress in the months following his accident, and with every small victory, his sense of hope grew stronger. His physical therapist had been amazed by his perseverance, and so had his family. With Sparky's unwavering presence, Tom began to view each day as another opportunity to push past his limitations. One crisp fall morning, Grace suggested they go to the park as a family. "It'll be good for you to get outside, Tom," she said with a smile. "And Sparky would love it, too." Tom hesitated for a moment. He wasn't sure if he was ready for such a big step, especially with other people around. But then he looked down at Sparky, who was sitting quietly by his side, tail wagging, as if to say, "You can do this." The dog had been a constant source of comfort, a reminder that he wasn't alone in this journey. With a deep breath, Tom agreed. Grace helped him into his wheelchair, and together with Sparky, they made their way to the park. The air was crisp, and the leaves had begun to turn shades of orange and gold. It was a beautiful day, and despite his lingering doubts, Tom couldn't help but feel a flicker of excitement. At the park, the familiar sounds of children playing, families laughing, and dogs barking filled the air. Tom's heart pounded as they made their way down the path. It felt surreal to be out in the world again, to experience the freedom of movement, even if it wasn't the same as before. But with Sparky by his side, it felt like anything was possible. As they walked through the park, Tom noticed the smiles and nods of encouragement from people they passed. Some of them were old friends, others were strangers, but everyone seemed to recognize the strength in Tom's determination. He had come so far, and it was clear that his journey wasn't just inspiring to him, but to others as well. At one point, Grace suggested that Tom try standing up from his wheelchair and taking a few steps. It was a big ask, but the thought of moving without the support of his chair made Tom nervous. He hadn't tried it in public before. Still, he trusted Grace, and with Sparky eagerly trotting beside him, he decided to give it a try. With Grace's gentle support and Sparky's watchful eyes, Tom placed his hands on the armrests and pushed himself up. The first few moments were shaky, but he stood, his legs trembling beneath him. Sparky wagged his tail excitedly, as if cheering him on. Tom took one tentative step, then another. His heart raced, but the thrill of moving on his own made him feel more alive than he had in months. "Look at you go, Tom," Grace said, her voice filled with pride. Tom smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over him. He wasn't walking perfectly, but he was walking. With Sparky at his side, he felt braver, more confident. The world, once so intimidating, now seemed more accessible. It wasn't just the physical act of standing that meant something, it was the realization that he could do more than he had thought possible. With Sparky's support, Tom was beginning to rediscover his strength. After a few more steps, Tom carefully lowered himself back into his wheelchair, feeling exhausted but elated. Sparky jumped up beside him, nuzzling his face in an unspoken expression of encouragement. It was as if the dog knew just how much this moment meant. As they continued their walk through the park, Tom felt a profound sense of accomplishment. He wasn't the same boy he had been before the accident, but he was still him, stronger, more resilient, and filled with a new sense of purpose. He wasn't going to let the accident define him. Instead, he was going to keep moving forward, one step at a time, with Sparky by his side. When they returned home later that afternoon, Tom felt a quiet satisfaction. It was clear that his journey wasn't over, but with Sparky's loyalty, his family's support, and his own determination, he knew that he was ready to face whatever came next. The road ahead might be long, but Tom was no longer afraid. With Sparky's love and the strength he had found within himself, he knew that he could tackle anything life threw his way. The story of Tom and Sparky emphasizes the profound impact that companionship and perseverance can have on overcoming life's challenges. Tom's recovery from a traumatic accident was not just a physical journey but an emotional one, where the unconditional support from Sparky, the dog, played a crucial role. The dog's presence reminded Tom daily that he wasn't alone, pushing him to break through his doubts and take the necessary steps toward healing. The key lesson here is that emotional support, whether from pets, family, or friends, can be just as important as physical therapy when it comes to recovery. This bond between Tom and Sparky shows how resilience can be nurtured with love and encouragement. In real life, Many individuals facing physical and emotional obstacles find strength in the support of their loved ones and animals, proving that the power of companionship is universal. Just like Tom, anyone struggling with adversity can benefit from leaning on others and embracing a mindset of hope and perseverance. It's a reminder that, no matter how tough the journey may be, we can overcome it with patience, determination, and the unwavering support of those around us.